As we embark on this new legislative year, I want to urge all of us to accommodate in our new year resolutions and calendar a renewed commitment to the service of our great nation, Nigeria. Let us resolve to rededicate ourselves to the task of fixing Nigeria through legislation. Another critical task before us is the completion of the electoral reforms. We must complete this year. As the nation begins preparations for the next electoral cycle in 2027, we have a unique opportunity to strengthen our democracy by tinkering with our electoral acts, to strengthen it for the congresses, primaries, etc., and conventions. Electoral reform is not just a legislative duty, it is a moral imperative. It is our chance to give Nigerians and the entire people a system that is transparent, that is credible, and reflective of their will and the will of all citizens. Every vote must count. Let us not waver in this responsibility, for the foundation of every thriving democracy is trust in its electoral processes.
Senator Akpabio drawing the attention of his colleagues on the need for electoral reforms. This is what many Nigerians are calling for. Peter Obi also called for electoral reforms and judicial reforms in his New Year address to Nigerians. Many Nigerians are calling for this. Some even go as far as saying that it is the only condition that will make them to participate or come out to vote in 2027 presidential election. Yes, there's no doubt that electoral reforms are needed in Nigeria. But before we forget, Nigeria has never had a problem of laws. Even some laws enacted during the colonial era still exist in Nigeria till today. Nigeria has always had a problem of implementation. Even the Senate President Akpabio that is here speaking all the nice words, he wouldn't have been in the Senate, not to talk of being the Senate President, if the judiciary arm of government didn't help him to circumvent the 2022 electoral law. Yes, the 2022 electoral law says that nobody can participate in two primaries in an election cycle. It is outrightly banned by the electoral law. And if you remember, Akpabio stepped down for Tinubu in the APC primaries of 2022. So he already contested for the APC presidential primaries. He is not eligible to contest for any other position in the 2023 election cycle. But somehow he became the candidate of the APC in the senatorial election in Akwa State, despite not contesting the senatorial primary election. And people felt that it was an easy case to win. They went to court, and to everyone's surprise, the Supreme Court found a way to return him to the Senate, despite the electoral law saying that it is not possible. So these are the issues. People should just focus on winning the election, making sure that they defend their votes on that day. Whatever they do with the amendments, even if they go as far as reforming the judiciary to make it impossible for judges to circumvent the electoral law, even if they amend the electoral law to make everything, including voting, electronic, Nigerians shouldn't be carried away. They must focus on voting on that day and defending their vote till the last collation center. This should be their focus, because no one is talking about going to any court anymore. Because going by the precedent the courts set in 2023, it is very discouraging for any candidate to go and waste his time. In fact, it is practically impossible to prove that you were rigged out of the election. Yes, the evidence is there. They expect you to bring evidence from all polling officers. So imagine a candidate in a presidential election, he was rigged out in about, let's say, 10,000 polling units. He needs to assemble all the polling officers in the 10,000 polling units and maybe bring video evidence, bring everything to court, and expect the court to go through all the evidence one by one for 10,000 polling units before awarding the election to you. Even the tribunal timetable alone will not allow for the calling of 1,000 witnesses, not to talk about 10,000 witnesses. So it is practically impossible to win against the person that INEC declared winner. The judges made it so. They would have pushed the burden to INEC. INEC conducted the election. They should be the ones to bring all the evidence of their declaration. If they said that Mr. A won the election, they should be able to bring it to court and tell the open court, yes, this is how he won. But in 2023, IREV evidence posted by INEC and owned and operated by INEC themselves, most of the results on the IREV are quite different from physical copies of INEC results. So you see the problem. This alone, if the judges were upright, would have disqualified and nullified that election completely, because you can't have copies of the results on internet on your own IREV and the physical copies are saying completely different thing, when the electoral law says that they are supposed to be the same copies. Yes, the electoral law says that the first copy that INEC officials are supposed to consult before starting any collation in any election is the IREV copies. When it is not available, they will now ask for the party copies or police copies. There are guidelines on how they will decide which copies they will go for to start the collation process. But all this, they didn't do that. They didn't follow the procedure, and the court allowed them instead of punishing them. They didn't punish them. Why will they not do it in future elections? That was why they did what they did in Kogi election. It was because the courts didn't punish them in the Presidential Election Tribunal. Because if they did, they wouldn't have that audacity to go to conduct an election with already filled in result sheets. These are criminal acts. It's not as if the 2022 electoral law is perfect. But if all parties, INEC officials and the courts followed the law to the letter, the 2023 presidential election would have been free and fair, better than any election conducted in this country. But what did they do? They allowed INEC to get away with the robbery, including shutting off the IREV, the main proof that was guaranteed in the electoral law of 2022. This proof made people, it gave people the motivation to troop out en masse to vote in the election, because they felt, since results are going to be posted on IREV, anyone can access and see the results, then the election must be free and fair. At the end of the day, they didn't punish INEC officials for shutting off the IREV. That motivated them, like already said, to conduct bizarre elections in future elections. Like all we have seen, look at what happened in Edo State and the other off-season governorship elections they've conducted. So these are the issues. People must also remember that Buhari won an election in this country without IREV, without beavers. No results were posted online, without even the electoral law amendment of 2022. The electoral law they used in conducting 2015 election was the 2010 electoral law. Of course, that's the one they amended in 2022. People must understand that they should not put all their hope in the laws, because they can always find their ways to manipulate the system and tell you to go to court. And you already know what will happen when you go to that court. So people should remain vigilant whether they pass a new law or not. Just focus on defending your votes, because you know, even if they pass a new law today, tying the hands of INEC that they must prove in court the election they conducted, don't relax thinking that no need to protect my votes, no need to follow them to collation center. No, thinking that when INEC steals the election or rigs in another person's favor, that you will go to court to hold INEC to account because of the law. The courts will disappoint you like they did in 2023. Make sure you prepare for 2027 presidential election properly. The day is a public holiday. This has to be said over and over again so that people can understand it. Sacrifice that day and troop out en masse, even in more numbers like in 2023. Cast your vote, follow that vote to the next collation center as far as you can. There is power in numbers. Organize yourselves in your neighborhoods and make sure you have one objective: to identify foreigners, because people who rig elections or carry ballot boxes, they normally don't work in their polling units, except where they have many thugs that are working for one party. They can organize themselves and operate in their neighborhood, but most of the time they normally import them. They normally push them to opposition strongholds, because if you really want to rig election to your favor, you have to try to reduce the votes of your opponent. You already know the strongholds of your opponent, so that's where you should focus and move your thugs to go and disrupt the elections. That's how it works. So if you live in the stronghold of the opposition, organize yourself, because they will be coming to disrupt the election. they want to disrupt it in such a way that your numbers will reduce. So this is very important. People should prepare themselves well ahead. There's nothing like thinking that someone will come and save you. You need to save yourself. No one is protesting now. Take that particular election day as your day of protest. Use that your vote to protest all the hardship, everything you have been experiencing under this administration. Reserve all that energy for that particular day so that you wouldn't say, it came as a surprise. You have to be prepared well ahead so that whatever happens, you know you have done your best. After you have done your best, leave the rest for others to do their own. Thanks for watching.